Ordinarily, we would expect that when it comes to issues of placement, the Ghana Education Service would take charge of that. Why are you usurping, and that's the word many would use, the authority that has been placed with the GES to handle issues of education?
Okay, thank you very much, and then I wish all my listeners a happy interview,
right.
a fine interview.
Right.
Before this time, we had this placement system for about 10 years, during which Ghana Education Service was the sole implementers of ministry's policy. So the ministry formulated policies, and GES was the sole implementers.
Right.
So they were in charge of both public and private schools. The situation is no longer the same. This time they are handling only public schools, and private schools are supposed to be fending for themselves. So they have lost the right over public and private. No wonder they are beginning to discriminate against students from private schools. And so it's natural that once they are focusing on only public schools, they would think that public schools are the only Ghanaian children who must be placed. And
let's go through the claims. And basically all of this concern is stemming from what you claim is a statement of Professor Amankwa, the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, claiming that first of all, there would be a need for some entrance exams that all persons moving from private into public senior high schools would have to take. And a raft of the demands you're also making are on the screens right now. You're also talking about the fact that the Ghana Education Service has now become the public education service representing only public schools. That's your first claim. Then you're also going ahead to talk about the fact that if their role should be properly redefined, then it will mean that no school will provide them with data. And you go on with issues of fairness and asking, for instance, the National School Inspectorate Authority to handle this, and you are serving finally notice that you would resist what you're describing as discriminatory practices. So these are your demands, key demands, really. So that's why I'm asking the question as to how you feel we can properly go about this.
So the first naturally is to bring stakeholders' attention to what is happening, which is unfair. The idea behind getting the 30% from the local people, the chiefs, and then distributing it was to ensure that children in deprived communities who couldn't get the opportunity of making the grades that are needed should be given that opportunity, because we have seen that sometimes because they didn't get a lot of resources, they do not do well. But when they move on, they tend to do better. But we find similar poor deprived private schools as well in the rural area. So if you are serving, if the idea is to serve deprived schools, then look at deprived schools in both public and private, and not just looking at public deprived schools. That's our first concern. Because if you do that, if you are just trying to favor only public school students, what actually happens is this: you are trying to indirectly say that if children want better opportunities, they should start leaving private schools to public GSS schools to get that same opportunity that they would have had in their schools. I think it's unfair. The Constitution does not allow for us to discriminate against them. He also made claims to the fact that in elsewhere we have community schools, only persons in the community were allowed to attend the community schools, as if to suggest that the schools, the public schools, are owned by them. Those schools in the community schools, what he's talking about in the advanced countries, are funded by the taxes of the community. And so therefore, it was just right for them to make sure that only persons who have funded the schools are given opportunity in those places. But in Ghana, all taxpayers contribute to public education. So you cannot say that the schools are your schools, when we very well know that we all contribute to taxes that run those schools.
But this is the point. You know that when it comes to the placement system, obviously looking at government's policy of, for instance, free senior high school, priority would have to be given to public school students, not so.
No, you have to give priority to Ghanaian children. Ghanaian children must be given the fair and equal opportunity to access schools that are Ghanaian schools.
If you clearly listen to the basis for which, for instance, Professor Amankwa was making his claim, he says this is the practice that you have elsewhere. and not just in Ghana. So if we're to adopt this, then we need to give priority to
the price that we have elsewhere is on the basis of the fact that elsewhere that community contributes to funding those schools. So who contributes to funding public schools in Ghana?
Ghanaian taxpayers.
Does the GES contribute to funding the schools? You don't own the schools. We own the schools.
But you agree that there's private interest at play here, isn't it? The fact that you're running a business, that's what you're doing.
When the Ghanaian became a private Ghanaian, public Ghanaian, when did we get there? What kind of analogy is that? How can you come to that conclusion that because your parents took you to a private school, therefore you cannot access public facility? How do you come by that? How did we get here?
I know oversimplifying matters, but particularly when he says all you need is a requirement. Take the entrance exam, let there be requirements.
We all go to write West African Examination Council basic certificate examination.
Right.
On merit, you are posted to schools. So you didn't do well, and now you are saying that another group must not do that examination but come in with an entrance, a new kind of entrance examination. How can you say that? How can you say that?
What's been the level of engagement between your group and the Ghana Education Service? At least they are the service. You may have taken steps as well to reach out to the supervising ministry, which is the education ministry. What reactions are you getting from authorities on this?
And to the new act, and that was implemented this year, we had a seat actually in the Ghana Education Service. I even served on that body. So we worked hand in hand. So Ghana Education Service served both public and private. That is not the case now. With the new law, they are only working for public schools. But you see, it's a country where the constitution acknowledges that there's an opportunity for people to run private schools as well. Even in the advanced country we are talking about, then what they should be doing actually is that part of the taxpayers' money should be given to those who want to go to private schools for fairness sake. So that if that will alleviate some of the cost of the education, then we are making it even more accessible. Instead of saying that if you don't go to a public school, you cannot get part of that national cake. I think it's unfair. That's not the basis for fair distribution of our resources.
And that's why I'm asking about the solution and your engagements with the authorities. What indication are you getting from them? Because first of all, this is not the first demand you've raised. You've started by raising even concerns about how private schools are excluded from placement when it comes to the free senior high school policy. That's where you started from. And then today we're here, you're dealing with the issues of placement as well. So it appears that there's a snowball effect. I don't know if that's how we should be terming all of that now.
We are saying that the education service can no longer become the body that will be in charge of the placement.
Why not?
No, because they'll be unfair. They are players and cannot be a referee.
At least we know. So why not create?
So we should shift that responsibility from that outfit, because this time they are being biased towards a section of a Ghanaian populace.
Right.
So we should shift that role from them to another body. Maybe Nasha could do that, where we all be fairly represented. Otherwise, a new body set up where we can be represented and be sure that we are treating every Ghanaian child fairly.
Let's